My name is Nathan, 34 years old, and I just sold the dream house I spent 7 years saving for. Why? Because my sister Jessica decided my home office was her new makeup studio, and my mother said, "Real careers do not need dedicated workspaces." Turns out she was right, but not in the way she thought. I do not need that house anymore. My career has never been better since I left. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had a family member who did not respect your boundaries. 6 years ago, I was a senior software developer at a Fortune 500 company in Seattle. The pay was good, but I had bigger dreams. I wanted to build my own business, create applications that could genuinely help people, and most importantly, I wanted to do it on my own terms. After 3 years of 60-hour work weeks and countless sleepless nights, I finally saved enough to launch my consulting business. The transition was not easy. I went from a stable 6-figure salary to months of uncertainty. I converted my apartment bedroom into a makeshift office, sleeping on a futon in my living room. For 2 years, I hustled, building my client base one project at a time. Gradually, my reputation grew. Tech startups began seeking me out for my expertise in scalable architecture solutions. By year 3 of running my business, I had enough saved for a down payment on a house. Not just any house, but my dream house. I remember the day I first saw it online. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with a den that could be converted into the perfect home office. Located in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown, it had everything I needed. The house hunting process was exhausting. I visited 37 properties over 3 months. Some were too small, others needed extensive renovations, and many were simply out of my price range. But when I walked into this particular house, I knew it was the one. The den had large windows overlooking a small garden, perfect natural lighting for long work sessions. The neighborhood was peaceful, ideal for concentration. I made an offer the same day. Getting approved for the mortgage was another challenge. As a self-employed individual, banks scrutinized my finances more thoroughly. I had to provide 2 years of tax returns, business financial statements, and proof of ongoing contracts. After weeks of paperwork and anxiety, I finally got approved. The day I signed those closing papers and received the keys was one of the proudest moments of my life. The first thing I did was transform the den into my dream office. I installed built-in bookshelves for my technical manuals and reference books. I purchased an ergonomic chair and standing desk setup. My computer system was state-of-the-art, with dual 32-inch monitors, a custom-built tower for handling intensive development tasks, and high-speed fiber internet connection. I even soundproofed the walls to ensure perfect concentration during client calls. This office became my sanctuary. It was where I built applications that now have hundreds of thousands of users. It was where I negotiated contracts worth tens of thousands of dollars. Every inch of that space represented my journey from corporate employee to successful entrepreneur. My business continued to flourish. I specialized in creating custom software solutions for healthcare startups, helping them streamline patient management systems and secure medical data. My biggest client was Meditech Solutions, a company revolutionizing remote patient monitoring. Their contract alone covered my mortgage and then some. My personal life was equally satisfying. I had been dating Rachel for almost 2 years. She was a graphic designer who understood the demands of creative work. We respected each other's need for space and time to focus on our careers. Rachel had her own apartment where she worked, but she would often stay at my place on weekends. We had discussions about moving in together eventually, maybe even getting married in the next year or 2. My relationship with my family, however, was more complicated. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my sister Jessica was 8. Dad moved to the opposite coast, and we rarely saw him. Mom raised us alone, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She was a practical woman who valued stability above all else. When I left my corporate job to start my business, she thought I was making a terrible mistake. "Why would you leave a good job with benefits for something so uncertain?" she had asked. "Your father was always chasing dreams too, and look how that turned out." It was a comparison that stung, but I was determined to prove her wrong. Jessica seemed to inherit Mom's practical mindset. She studied business administration and landed a marketing job at a retail company right after college. In her view, my lifestyle was unnecessarily risky. Our family gatherings were cordial but often tense. I would share news about landing a big client or completing a challenging project, and Mom would respond with, "That is nice, but do you have health insurance yet?" Or, "Are you contributing to a retirement plan?" Jessica would usually change the drady subject to something more conventional, like her recent promotion or company benefits. Despite these tensions, I was proud of what I had built. My business was generating more income than my previous corporate job. I had complete control over which projects I accepted. I could take a Wednesday off if I wanted to, or work through a weekend to meet a deadline. This freedom was worth every sacrifice I had made. Looking back, I realize how much I took that freedom for granted. I had created a perfect ecosystem for productivity and creativity. My home office was not just a room with a desk, it was the engine powering my livelihood. I never imagined it could all change so quickly. It was a Tuesday evening in October when my phone rang. I was in the middle of debugging a particularly frustrating authentication issue for the Meditech project. The caller ID showed it was Jessica, which was unusual. We typically exchanged obligatory text messages on birthdays and holidays, rarely calling each other. "Nathan," her voice sounded shaky, "I really need to talk to you." Over the next 20 minutes, Jessica explained her situation. She had broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years, Marcus. They had been living together, but the apartment was in his name. On top of that, her company was downsizing and she had received a layoff notice. With only 2 weeks of severance pay and nowhere to go, she was desperate. "I just need a place to stay for a couple of weeks," she assured me. "Just until I find a new job and can afford my own place. Please, Nathan. I do not have anywhere else to go." A part of me wanted to suggest she stay with Mom, but I knew their one-bedroom apartment would be too cramped. Despite our differences, she was still my sister. I could not turn her away when she was in crisis. "Okay," I agreed. "You can stay in the guest bedroom, just for a couple of weeks until you get back on your feet." The relief in her voice was palpable. "Thank you so much. You are a lifesaver. I promise I will not be in your way." 2 days later, Jessica arrived at my doorstep. I expected a suitcase or two, but I was greeted by the sight of her SUV packed to the ceiling with boxes, bags, and furniture pieces. "I thought you were staying for 2 weeks," I said, eyeing the mountain of possessions. "I am," she replied casually, "but I had to move everything out of Marcus's place. Do not worry, most of it will stay in boxes." That was the first red flag. The second came that evening when Jessica played music loud enough to be heard throughout the house while I was on a client call. When I asked her to turn it down, she seemed annoyed but complied. The third flag appeared the next morning when I found the kitchen in disarray with breakfast dishes piled in the sink and spilled coffee on the counter. "Sorry about the mess," she said when I pointed it out. "I was running late for a job interview. I will clean it up later." Later never came. Instead, more messes accumulated. Her makeup products began migrating from the guest bathroom to the kitchen table. Her laundry remained in the dryer for days. Empty takeout containers littered the living room. I tried to be patient. Jessica was going through a difficult time and adjustment periods are always challenging. I created a simple house rules document, printing it out and hanging it on the refrigerator. 1 quiet hours between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. for work calls. 2 clean up common areas after use. 3. Provide advance notice before inviting guests over. 4. Respect private spaces, especially the home office. Jessica glanced at the list and shrugged. "Sure, whatever. By the way, can my friend Amber come over tonight? We are going to watch a movie." That night, one friend turned into 4, and a movie night turned into an impromptu party that lasted until 2 a.m. I remained in my bedroom, fuming but trying to be understanding. The next morning, I gently reminded Jessica about the house rules. "You are not my landlord," she snapped. "I said I would try, but you need to lighten up a bit. Not everyone lives by a strict schedule like you do." The following week, things escalated. I was on an important video call with the Meditech team when Jessica burst into my office without knocking. "Can I borrow your printer? Mine is out of ink, and I need to print my resume." I muted my microphone. Jessica, I am in the middle of a meeting. Can this wait 30 minutes? She rolled her eyes. It will just take a second. They will not even notice. Before I could protest further, she was at my printer sending her document from her phone, the printer whirred to life, disrupting my call. I apologized to my clients and quickly ended the meeting 15 minutes early, promising to reconnect later. Do you realize what you just did? I asked her afterward. That was a meeting with my biggest client. It was just printing a document, she replied dismissively. You work from home. Interruptions happen. If it was that important, you should work from an actual office. That comment stung, but I let it go. The real problems began when Jessica started treating my home office as an extension of her living space. I would return from grocery shopping to find her using my desk to film TikTok videos. My carefully organized reference books would be moved to make room for her makeup mirrors. Once I even found coffee rings on important contract documents. This is my workspace, I explained, trying to keep my voice calm. My entire livelihood depends on this room. It is just a room, she countered. You can work anywhere. That is the whole point of remote work, right? I called Rachel that night, venting my frustrations. I do not know how much longer I can handle this. She has no respect for my boundaries. Have you tried sitting down and having a serious conversation with her? Rachel suggested. Make it clear that this is not just about preferences, but about your ability to earn a living. I took Rachel's advice and tried to have a heart-to-heart with Jessica the next day. I explained the importance of my workspace, how it was designed specifically for my productivity needs, and how her interruptions were affecting my work. I understand you need a place to stay, and I want to help you, I told her. But I need you to understand that my home office is off limits during work hours. My business is how I pay for this house that you are currently living in. Jessica seemed receptive at first. I did not realize it was such a big deal. I will try to be more mindful. The improvement lasted exactly 2 days. On the third day, I had a morning meeting scheduled with a potential new client. When I entered my office, I found Jessica asleep on the small couch I kept in the corner for reading. Her clothes were strewn across my desk chair, and her laptop was open on my desk. I woke her up, trying to contain my anger. What are you doing in here? I have a meeting in 15 minutes. She groggily sat up. Amber came over last night and we were working on job applications. I must have fallen asleep. Why are you making such a big deal about it? Because this is my workspace. You have the entire guest room to yourself. The lighting is better in here, she said, gathering her things slowly, and the desk is bigger. My room does not even have a proper desk. By the time she cleared out, I had barely 5 minutes to prepare for my meeting. The potential client noticed my frazzled state, and the conversation did not go as smoothly as I had hoped. They promised to think about my proposal, which in client language usually means no. That night, Rachel came over for dinner. Within minutes of arriving, she sensed the tension. Is everything okay? She asked when Jessica went to her room. No, I admitted. Living with Jessica is becoming impossible. She does not respect my space or my work. Have you thought about when you are going to ask her to leave? Rachel questioned. It has been almost 3 weeks already. I have tried bringing it up, but she always has an excuse. No job yet, not enough savings, needs more time. I do not want to throw my sister out on the street. Rachel squeezed my hand. I understand that, but you cannot sacrifice your business for her. Maybe set a firm deadline. I nodded, resolving to have another conversation with Jessica soon. Little did I know that the situation was about to get much worse. The breaking point came exactly 1 month after Jessica moved in. I returned home from a rare afternoon coffee meeting to find my office door wide open. Jessica had transformed the space into what looked like a social media content studio. Ring lights surrounded my desk where she had set up multiple mirrors and an elaborate makeup station. My computer had been unplugged and moved to the corner to make room for her equipment. What is going on here? I demanded, standing in the doorway. Jessica looked up from applying eyeshadow. Oh, hi, I am filming a sponsored makeup tutorial. The brand is paying me $500 for this video. In my office. Without asking. I tried texting you, but you did not respond, she said, though I had no missed messages on my phone. Besides, I have a deadline. The brand wants this content by tomorrow. And what about my work? I have deadlines too, Jessica. She shrugged. You can work in the living room for one afternoon. It is not a big deal. But it was a big deal. That evening I had a scheduled video conference with the Meditech team to review the latest development sprint. With my office commandeered, I was forced to set up a makeshift workspace at the kitchen table. 5 minutes into the call, the poor lighting and acoustics became apparent. 10 minutes in, Jessica and two friends walked through the kitchen laughing loudly as they grabbed snacks and beverages. Sorry about the background noise, I apologized to the clients. Unexpected situation at home today. The Meditech project manager, Daniel, looked concerned. Nathan, this is the third call in 2 weeks that has had interruptions. Is everything all right with your work setup? I assured him everything was fine, just temporary disruptions that would be resolved soon. But after the call, Daniel sent me a private message. We need to discuss reliability concerns. Can we chat tomorrow? That chat resulted in Meditech putting our next phase on hold. We value your work, Daniel explained, but we need consistent professional communication. Maybe once your home situation stabilizes, we can revisit. This was a financial blow I could not afford. Meditech represented almost 40% of my monthly income. Without their contract, I would struggle to cover my mortgage payments. The situation with Jessica continued to deteriorate. She had essentially claimed my office as her space, moving more and more of her belongings in each day. When I tried working from coffee shops, I encountered new problems: unreliable internet, noisy environments, and the constant need to purchase food or drinks to justify my presence. One rainy Tuesday, all the tables at my usual cafe were occupied. I ended up trying to code from my car in the parking lot, balancing my laptop on the steering wheel as rain drummed on the roof. By the time I returned home, I had a pounding headache and had accomplished less than half my usual workload. How was your day? Jessica asked, cheerfully lounging on the couch, watching reality television. Terrible, I replied honestly. I could not find a place to work. You could have worked in your room, she suggested, as if this was a helpful observation. My bedroom does not have a desk, I pointed out, and sitting on a bed all day is terrible for my back. Then get a desk for your room, she said with a shrug. Problem solved. Her casual dismissal of my struggle was infuriating, but what could I do? Technically it was my house, but actually enforcing that fact would mean potentially making my sister homeless. I felt trapped. Sleep became elusive. Night after night I would lie awake, anxiety gnawing at me as I calculated diminishing savings and mounting credit card bills. My productivity plummeted, which meant fewer billable hours, creating a vicious cycle of financial stress. My relationship with Rachel began suffering too. Our date nights, once filled with engaging conversations and laughter, now consisted mainly of me venting about Jessica. After one particularly complaint-filled evening, Rachel set down her fork with a sigh. Nathan, I love you, but this situation is consuming you, she said gently. You need to address it directly, or it is going to destroy everything you have worked for. What do you suggest? I asked somewhat defensively. That I kick my sister out with nowhere to go? Has she even been looking for her own place? Rachel countered. Or for a job? It has been over a month now. The truth was, I had no idea. Jessica always changed the subject when I asked about her job search or apartment hunting. The few times I pressed the issue, she would become emotional, reminding me of how Marcus had left her with nothing, and how the job market was impossible right now. The final straw came when I lost a potential new client because I missed our scheduled call entirely. I had been working from a local library, and their internet went down without warning. By the time I rushed to a coffee shop and got online, the client had sent a terse email withdrawing interest in my services. That night, I confronted Jessica directly. We need to talk about a timeline. When do you plan to move out? She looked surprised by my directness. Move out? I thought things were working well. Working well, Jessica. I have lost my biggest client. I am missing meetings. I cannot even use my own office. You are being dramatic, she said dismissively. Lots of people work without a fancy home office. This is not about fancy, I insisted. This is about having a basic professional setup to do my job. Something I had until you took it over. Jessica's expression hardened. So now you are blaming me for your work problems. Maybe you are just not as good at your job as you think you are. The conversation devolved from there with accusations flying from both sides. It ended with Jessica storming off to her room, slamming the door behind her. I was left standing in the living room, shaking with frustration and a dawning realization this situation was not temporary. Jessica had no intention of leaving anytime soon. The next day, Rachel and I had lunch at her apartment. I recounted the previous night's confrontation, the dark circles under my eyes testament to another sleepless night. I think I need to get my mom involved, I said, pushing food around my plate without eating. Maybe she can talk some sense into Jessica. Rachel looked skeptical. Are you sure that is a good idea? From what you have told me, your mom tends to side with Jessica. What choice do I have? I cannot keep living like this. My business is falling apart. I am constantly stressed, and now we are barely speaking to each other in the house. Rachel reached across the table and took my hand. Whatever you decide to do, I will support you. But please do not let this drag on much longer. I am worried about you. Little did I know that involving my mother would not solve my problems, but instead bring them to a devastating climax. The following Sunday, I called my mother. We had our usual brief catch-up with her, telling me about neighborhood gossip and her book club selections. When the conversation began to wind down, I took a deep breath and broached the subject. Mom, I need to talk to you about Jessica, I began. She has been staying with me for over a month now, and it is becoming a problem. A problem? How so, Mom? Asked, her tone immediately defensive. I explained the situation as calmly and factually as I could. How Jessica had taken over my office, how my work was suffering, how she showed no signs of looking for her own place. I tried to emphasize that I wanted to help her, but not at the expense of my own livelihood. Nathan, she is your sister, Mom said, as if that simple fact should resolve everything. She is going through a difficult time. You have that big house all to yourself. Surely you can share your space for a while. I have been sharing, I countered, but she has completely taken over my home office. That is where I work, Mom. Without it, I cannot run my business effectively. Your business, Mom said with a sigh, and I could practically hear her eyes rolling. You know, your father was always obsessed with having his own space too. A man cave, he called it. Look how that turned out. The comparison to my father stung as it always did. Mom knew exactly which buttons to push. This is not about having a man cave, I insisted. This is about my career, my ability to support myself. Nathan, Mom said, her voice taking on that lecture tone I remembered from childhood. Real careers do not need dedicated workspaces. Your father always claimed he needed special conditions to do his work too. But real professionals adapt. They make do with what they have. I was momentarily speechless. The dismissal of my entire career, of the business I had built from nothing, left me reeling. Mom, I am a software developer. I need a proper setup with multiple monitors, reliable internet, and a quiet environment for client calls. This is not a hobby. I understand that you think that, she replied condescendingly. But Jessica needs a place to stay right now. She is family. Are you really going to prioritize having an extra room over helping your sister? It is not an extra room, I said, my frustration mounting. It is essential to my work. If your work was really successful, Mom continued, as if I had not spoken, you would have a real office somewhere, not just a room in your house. Successful people go to actual workplaces, Nathan. That comment hit like a physical blow. All the years of building my business, all the clients I had satisfied, all the financial independence I had achieved, dismissed because I did not conform to her outdated idea of what success looked like. Mom, I need to go, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. We will talk later. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. I had hoped my mother would help mediate the situation, perhaps convince Jessica to be more respectful of my space, or to accelerate her plans to move out. Instead, she had sided completely with Jessica, even going so far as to delegitimize my entire career. As I sat processing this conversation, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I just spoke with Jessica. She told me what has really been going on. We need to talk. A sense of dread washed over me. What had Jessica told her? What version of events had she shared? The answer came later that evening when my mother arrived unannounced at my door. Jessica let her in before I even knew she was there. I emerged from the kitchen to find them both sitting in my living room, wearing matching expressions of disapproval. Nathan, Mom began without preamble. Jessica tells me you have been making her feel unwelcome, that you complain constantly about her using the house. Is that true? I glanced at Jessica, who had the audacity to look wounded. I have asked her to respect my workspace, I clarified. And yes, I have asked about her plans to find her own place. Plans, Mom echoed. Nathan, Jessica lost her job. She needs time to get back on her feet. She cannot just magically produce an apartment. It has been over a month, I pointed out. She has not even been looking for jobs consistently. I see her making TikTok videos more than sending out resumes. Jessica gasped, dramatically. That is not fair. Those videos are part of my brand building. They could lead to sponsorships. Exactly. Mom nodded. Jessica is exploring new career opportunities. Not everyone takes the conventional path. The irony of my mother, who had criticized my unconventional career choice for years now, defending Jessica's social media aspirations, was not lost on me. So what exactly is the plan here? I asked, looking between them. How long is Jessica supposed to stay? Mom and Jessica exchanged a glance that sent alarm bells ringing in my head. Well, Mom said slowly, we thought she could stay until she gets properly established. Maybe 6 months or so. 6 months, I repeated incredulously. That was never the agreement, she said. A couple of weeks. Plans change, Nathan, Jessica interjected. I did not expect the job market to be this tough. And you did not think to discuss this with me. It is my house. A house you can clearly afford, Mom pointed out, while your sister has nothing. Do you really want to throw her out on the street? The conversation spiraled from there. It became increasingly clear that this was not an impromptu visit but a coordinated intervention. Mom and Jessica had already discussed and decided that a long-term stay was the solution without any input from me. You know what I think, Mom said after several minutes of heated back and forth? I think you are being selfish. You have always been focused on yourself, your career, your space. That is why you are still single at 34. I am not single, I protested. I have been dating Rachel for 2 years. You have met her multiple times. And where is that relationship going? Mom challenged. Nowhere, because you are too absorbed in your little computer world to commit properly. Jessica nodded in agreement. Rachel even told me she thinks you work too much. You talked to Rachel about me. I was incredulous. When? She came by yesterday when you were out, Jessica said casually. We had a nice chat. This felt like the ultimate betrayal. My girlfriend and my sister discussing me behind my back, I pulled out my phone and texted Rachel. Did you come by my house yesterday and talk to Jessica about me? Her response came quickly. Yes, I wanted to check on you. Jessica said you were really stressed lately. I am worried about you. I looked up from my phone to see Mom and Jessica watching me expectantly. This is unbelievable, I said quietly. You have both decided how this is going to work without any consideration for me or my business. And now you have dragged Rachel into it too. We are trying to help you, Mom insisted. You are working yourself to death for this so-called business. Maybe this is a wake-up call. If you need that room so badly, maybe your business is not as successful as you claim. If you were really successful, Jessica added, echoing Mom's earlier sentiment, you would not need to work from home. You would have a real office with employees. Something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice deadly calm. Excuse me, Mom looked shocked. Both of you, get out of my living room. This conversation is over. Nathan, do not be ridiculous. Mom started, but I cut her off. I said, get out. This is my house. I paid for it. I make the rules here. Jessica stood up, rolling her eyes dramatically. Come on, Mom. He is just having one of his tantrums. Let him cool off. They retreated to Jessica's room, whispering to each other and casting disapproving glances my way. I grabbed my keys and left the house, unable to bear being under the same roof as them any longer. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour before finding myself outside Rachel's apartment. She answered the door looking concerned. "Nathan, are you okay? You look terrible." I told her everything from the conversation with my mother to the ambush intervention at my house. Rachel listened sympathetically, but as I finished recounting the events, I noticed she seemed hesitant. What I asked, "You have that look." "I do not want to upset you more," she began cautiously, "but have you considered that they might have a point? Not about your career," she added quickly, seeing my expression darken, "but about being so attached to your office setup. Maybe there are compromises that could work." I could not believe what I was hearing. Compromises, Rachel. I have been compromising for over a month. My business is falling apart. I have lost clients. My income is dropping. And now you think I should compromise more. "That is not what I meant," she backpedaled. "I just worry that this conflict is consuming you. Maybe finding a co-working space temporarily would help." "A co-working space costs money that I am rapidly losing because of this situation," I pointed out. "And why should I pay to work somewhere else when I have a perfectly good office in the house that I own?" Rachel sighed. "I understand that. I do. I just hate seeing you so stressed and unhappy." "Then support me," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Do not take their side." "I am not taking sides," she protested. "I am trying to find a solution that works for everyone." "There is a solution," I said firmly. "Jessica moves out and gets her own place like every other adult." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "And if she cannot afford that right now?" "That is not my problem," I shouted, then immediately regretted my tone. "I am sorry. I should not yell. But Rachel, you have to understand how frustrating this is. They are acting like I am the unreasonable one for wanting basic respect in my own home." "I do understand," she said, but her voice was cool now. "But I also think family should help each other. There has to be a middle ground here." We went back and forth for another hour, neither of us budging from our positions. By the time I left Rachel's apartment, it was clear we were at an impasse. She thought I was being too rigid. I thought she was not supporting me when I needed her most. The next day, Rachel sent me a text, "I think we need some time apart. This situation is bringing out a side of you I have never seen before, and I need space to think. I am sorry." Just like that, in the span of 24 hours, I had effectively lost the support of my mother, the respect of my sister, and the love of my girlfriend. And all because I wanted to maintain a professional workspace in my own home. That night, alone in my bedroom while Jessica and her friends laughed loudly in the living room, I reached my breaking point. Something had to change. I could not continue living like this. But what options did I have? Unable to sleep and unwilling to remain in the house with the constant reminder of my deteriorating situation, I grabbed my laptop and drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. The place was nearly empty at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, with just a few truckers at the counter and a lone figure in a corner booth surrounded by electronic devices. I ordered coffee and settled into a booth, opening my laptop more out of habit than with any real plan. As I stared blankly at my email inbox filled with follow-up messages from concerned clients, the man from the corner approached my table. "Sorry to bother you," he said, gesturing to my laptop. "But is the Wi-Fi working for you? Mine keeps dropping." I checked my connection and confirmed it was stable. We exchanged a few technical troubleshooting suggestions, and before long he had joined me at my booth. His name was Eric, and he was passing through town on what he called his digital nomad journey. "I have been working remotely for 3 years now," he explained, showing me photos on his tablet. 6 months in Bali, 3 in Costa Rica, just finished a stint in Portugal. Now I am road tripping across the states before heading to Japan next month. "You work from all these places?" I asked, genuinely curious. "What kind of setup do you have?" Eric laughed. "This is it," he said, pointing to his laptop and a small bag. "My entire office fits in a backpack. Laptop noise-canceling headphones, portable second monitor if I need it, and a global hotspot for backup internet. I can set up anywhere in under 5 minutes." As he described his lifestyle and work habits, something shifted in my perspective. Here was someone running a successful web development business without a fixed office, without a house, without even a consistent time zone. But what about stability? I asked. Do not clients worry about your nomadic setup? Actually, they love it, Eric replied. It has become part of my brand. I solve problems from unique perspectives because I am constantly exposed to different environments and cultures. Plus, I make it work seamlessly for them, always available for calls during their business hours, delivering on time no matter where I am. And where do you live? Like your permanent address? I do not really have one anymore, he said with a shrug. My parents' place in Minnesota is my official mailing address, but I have not been there in over a year. Home is wherever I happen to be working that month. His words struck me profoundly. Home is wherever I happen to be working. For years I had equated my success with my house, specifically with my meticulously designed home office. I had tied my professional identity to a physical space, believing I needed those exact conditions to perform at my best. But what if that was not true? What if I had been limiting myself all along? Eric and I talked until nearly 3 a.m., exchanging stories and perspectives. He showed me photos of his workspaces around the world, beachside cafes in Thailand, mountain lodges in Switzerland, co-working spaces in Berlin. Each completely different, yet he maintained a successful business through it all. The secret, he told me as we finally prepared to leave, is understanding that a house is just a structure. Home is a feeling, and your business lives in your skills and relationships, not in any room or desk. I drove back to my house as dawn was breaking my mind, racing with new possibilities. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. Eric had inadvertently shown me a path forward that I never would have considered on my own. The next morning, while Jessica was still asleep, I began researching. First, I looked into the digital nomad lifestyle, reading blogs and forums about remote work from around the world. The more I read, the more excited I became about the possibilities. Next, I reviewed my client contracts, assessing which relationships could be maintained remotely and which might need adjustments. To my surprise, almost all my work could be done from anywhere with a decent internet connection. The few clients who required occasional in-person meetings were all based in cities that would be interesting to visit periodically. Then I researched the legal aspects of my situation. Since I owned my house outright with no tenants' rights established for Jessica, I had complete control over the property. I could sell it, rent it out, or continue living there, all at my discretion. Around noon, I called a real estate agent recommended by one of my former colleagues. Martha specialized in quick sales and had a reputation for getting excellent prices. We arranged a meeting for that afternoon at a coffee shop near my house. Given the current market and your neighborhood, Martha explained, after reviewing my property details, we could list at 20% above what you paid 3 years ago and likely get multiple offers within days. The figure she quoted was substantially higher than I had expected. Enough to fund several years of living expenses, even in moderately priced international destinations. Enough to rebuild my emergency fund and invest in upgrading my portable work equipment. Enough to start a completely new chapter of my life. How quickly could we make this happen? I asked. We could list by Monday, Martha replied, with professional photos over the weekend. Given the demand in your area, I would not be surprised if we had offers by Wednesday and could close within 30 days. I signed the preliminary paperwork on the spot. My next call was to Daniel at Meditech, my former largest client. I explained that I was restructuring my business model and would like the opportunity to discuss rejoining their projects. I will be implementing a completely reliable remote work solution, I assured him. No more interruptions or connectivity issues. Daniel sounded cautiously optimistic. We have been struggling with your replacement, to be honest. If you can guarantee consistent availability and communication, we would be interested in talking. One by one, I reached out to other clients I had lost or disappointed over the past month. Many were receptive to reconnecting, especially when I explained my new dedicated approach to ensuring reliable service, regardless of location. By the end of the day, I had set the wheels in motion for a complete transformation of my life and business. The house that had once represented my greatest achievement was about to become my launching pad to something far more exciting and fulfilling. That evening I sat in my car in the driveway, gathering my courage before entering the house. I knew the conversation ahead would be difficult and likely explosive. Jessica and Mom would not take this news well. But for the first time in months, I felt completely certain of my decision. I was done letting others dictate how I should live and work. I was done compromising my success to accommodate those who did not respect my boundaries. Most importantly, I was done equating my worth and capabilities with a physical space. As I walked through the front door, a strange sense of detachment washed over me. This house, which had once felt like the embodiment of my dreams, now felt like just another building. The true value was in what I created, not where I created it. And with that realization, I was ready to face whatever reaction awaited me inside. The professional photographer Martha sent over that weekend captured my house beautifully. Sunlight streaming through windows, hardwood floors, gleaming spacious rooms, looking inviting and full of potential. The listing went live Monday morning with an asking price that still made me do a double take, significantly higher than what I had paid 3 years earlier. By Tuesday afternoon, we had 7 offers, 3 above asking price. By Wednesday, we had accepted an all-cash offer with a 21-day closing period. The speed was dizzying but also exhilarating. Throughout this process, I had managed to keep it secret from Jessica. She was so absorbed in her social media activities and outings with friends that she barely noticed my comings and goings. The photographer had come while she was at a job interview, her first in weeks from what I could tell. On Thursday evening, with the sale contract signed and the earnest money deposited, I decided it was time to break the news. I texted Mom asking her to come over, saying we needed to have a family discussion. She arrived at 7 p.m., looking wary but ready for battle. "Jessica, Mom, I have something important to tell you both." I began once we were all seated in the living room. "I have sold the house." The silence that followed was profound. Jessica looked up from her phone for the first time since we sat down, her expression shifting from boredom to confusion. "What do you mean, sold the house?" she finally asked. "Exactly what I said. This house has been sold. The new owners take possession in 3 weeks. Mom found her voice next. "Nathan, that is not funny. Stop joking around." "It is not a joke," I replied calmly, sliding the sale agreement across the coffee table. "The papers are signed. It is done." Jessica grabbed the document, her eyes widening as she scanned the contents. "You cannot do this. Where am I supposed to go?" "The same place you were supposed to go 2 months ago when your 2-week stay was up," I said evenly. "Your own apartment." "This is ridiculous," Mom interjected. "You are selling your house just to spite your sister. How childish can you be?" "This has nothing to do with spite," I countered, though we all knew that was not entirely true. "This is about me making a change that suits my life and career." "And where exactly are you planning to live?" Jessica demanded. I had prepared for this question. I am embracing a digital nomad lifestyle. I will be working remotely while traveling. First stop is Bali for a month, then we will see. Mom laughed dismissively. "This is absurd. You are having some kind of breakdown. You cannot just sell your house and run off to Bali on a whim." "Actually, I can. And I have." I maintained my composure, determined not to let this devolve into another shouting match. "The decision is made. The house is sold. You both have 3 weeks to make arrangements." Jessica's expression morphed from shock to calculation. "You would not really leave me homeless. This is just a bluff to scare me into moving out." "It is not a bluff," I assured her, pulling up the confirmation email from my travel agent on my phone. One-way ticket to Denpasar, departing the day after closing. I have already booked my first month's accommodations as well. "You have lost your mind," Mom declared. "What about your things, your furniture, your life here?" "I am selling most of the furniture with the house," I explained. "The rest is going into a small storage unit or being donated. I am keeping my essential equipment and clothes, which all fit in 2 suitcases." "You cannot be serious." Jessica's voice had lost its edge, reality beginning to sink in. "What about me?" "You have 3 weeks to find a place," I repeated. "That is more notice than you gave Marcus when you moved out of his apartment." Mom stood up abruptly. "I need to make a call. This is unacceptable." She stepped outside to use her phone, undoubtedly calling one of her friends for support or advice. Jessica remained on the couch, staring at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Is it really because I used your office?" For the first time in our conversation, I heard a note of genuine confusion in her voice. It struck me then that she truly did not understand the impact of her actions, how her dismissal of my work and invasion of my space had affected me. "Partly," I admitted. "But it is more than that. It is about respect, Jessica. You moved into my home and immediately started treating my space and my work as unimportant. Mom did the same. You both made me feel that my career, my choices, and my boundaries did not matter." "That is not fair," she protested, but with less conviction than before. "Isn't it? You took over my office without permission. You interrupted client calls. You told me real careers do not work from home. You and Mom ambushed me in my own living room to tell me how I should live my life." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "I did not think it was such a big deal. It is just a room. To you, maybe. To me, it was my livelihood, and neither of you respected that." Mom returned, her expression stormy. "I just spoke with your Uncle Robert. He thinks you have had some kind of nervous breakdown. He wants you to see someone." I had to laugh at that. Of course he does. Uncle Robert, who has worked in the same office building for 30 years, cannot comprehend any other way of working. "This is not funny, Nathan," Mom snapped. "You are throwing away everything you have built." "No," I corrected her. "I am throwing away a structure. Everything I have built, my skills, my client relationships, my business is coming with me." The argument continued for another hour, cycling through disbelief, anger, bargaining, and finally the beginnings of acceptance. Jessica tried multiple angles, from guilt to threats to sudden promises of change. Mom alternated between concerned parent and outraged defender of traditional career paths. Through it all, I maintained my position with a calmness that surprised even me. The decision was made. The house was sold. Their opinions, while heard, would not change my course. Finally exhausted, Mom stood to leave. "I hope you know what you are doing, Nathan. This seems like an extreme reaction to a family disagreement." "It is not a reaction," I replied. "It is a decision. One I should have made long ago before losing clients and income, because I was too attached to a specific workspace." After Mom left, Jessica retreated to her room without another word. I expected to feel guilty or conflicted, but instead, I felt lighter than I had in months. The die was cast. Change was coming, and for once it was change on my terms. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. I sorted through my possessions, surprised by how little I actually needed or wanted to keep. Years of accumulated stuff, once seeming essential, now felt like unnecessary anchors. I sold or donated furniture, kitchen, appliances, decorative items, and even most of my books, keeping only those with sentimental value. My technology setup underwent a complete overhaul. I invested in a high-performance laptop, portable second monitor, professional-grade headphones with noise cancellation, and various adapters and tools to ensure I could work effectively from anywhere with an internet connection. Jessica, meanwhile, went through stages of reaction. First came denial, where she continued her routine as if nothing had changed. Then anger, with slammed doors and cutting remarks whenever we crossed paths. Bargaining followed, with sudden offers to pay rent or use only certain parts of the house. When those failed, she fell into a brief depression, spending days in her room. Finally, about a week before closing, she emerged with a new attitude. She had found a small apartment near her friend Amber and had scheduled movers. She even apologized in her way for maybe taking advantage of the situation. "I never thought you would actually sell the house," she admitted, as she packed her belongings. "I thought you were bluffing." "I know," I replied. "That was part of the problem." Mom remained disapproving until the very end. She helped Jessica move but refused to assist with any of my preparations. Her parting words, delivered on the day before closing, were, "When this digital nomad fantasy falls apart, do not expect me to have a room waiting for you." I assured her I would find my own accommodations if things did not work out. The day of closing arrived with surprising emotional clarity. I stood in my empty house, the rooms echoing with 3 years of memories. The home office, the space that had caused so much conflict, looked small and ordinary without my equipment and personal touches. Just a room, as Jessica had said. The thought made me smile rather than anger me now. As I handed the keys to the excited young couple who had purchased the house, I felt no regret, only a profound sense of releasing something that no longer served me. The substantial check deposited into my account represented not just the value of a house, but the currency of freedom. That evening, in a hotel room near the airport, I received a text from Rachel, the first communication we had shared in weeks. I heard about the house from Jessica. "Are you really moving to Bali tomorrow?" I confirmed that I was. "That is quite a dramatic solution," she replied. "Not dramatic," I texted back. "Decisive." After a moment, another message appeared. "Safe travels, Nathan. I hope you find what you are looking for." I stared at those words for a long time, recognizing both the well wishes and the finality they contained. Some relationships, it seemed, were tied to specific places and circumstances. Without the house, without the familiar context of our lives in the same city, Rachel and I had reached our natural conclusion. As I finished packing my 2 suitcases containing everything I now owned beyond my digital assets, I felt a strange mixture of nervousness and peace. Tomorrow would begin an entirely new chapter 1, without the physical trappings I had once thought essential. One where home would be defined by connectivity and creativity, rather than walls and a mortgage. I fell asleep that night with no regrets, only anticipation for the journey ahead. The first rays of Balinese sunlight streaming through my villa windows felt like nature itself was validating my decision. I had been in Bali for exactly 1 month, working from a mix of my villa beachside cafes and a trendy co-working space in Ubud. My productivity had not just recovered, it had soared beyond my previous levels. The change in environment seemed to spark my creativity in unexpected ways. Problems that had once seemed complex now yielded to fresh approaches. My code was cleaner, my solutions more elegant. Clients noticed the difference, commenting on my renewed energy and innovative thinking. Meditech had not only taken me back, but had expanded our contract to include a new patient engagement platform. Daniel, once concerned about my reliability, now joked about how my background views during video calls made the rest of the team jealous. If results keep looking this good, he told me during our weekly check, and the whole development team might go nomadic. My routine had found a natural rhythm. Mornings began with sunrise yoga on the beach, followed by focused work sessions until early afternoon. The hottest hours of the day I spent swimming or exploring local villages. Evenings often involved dinner with fellow digital nomads I had met, exchanging stories and tips about remote work and travel. The financial aspect had worked out better than I anticipated. Between the proceeds from selling my house and my revitalized business income, I was actually saving more money than when I had a mortgage. My expenses in Bali were a fraction of my costs back home, even including occasional splurges on luxury accommodations or experiences. 4 months into my journey, having moved from Bali to Lisbon, I received an unexpected email from Jessica. The subject line read, simply, "Thank you." "I found a job," she wrote. "A real one with benefits and everything. Marketing coordinator for a local tech startup. I have my own apartment now too. Small, but it is mine. I wanted to say I am sorry for how I treated your space and your work. I did not get it then. I think I do a little more now." She went on to explain that being forced to find her own place and support herself had been a wake-up call. For the first time in her adult life, she was truly independent, responsible for her own success or failure. The experience had been terrifying at first, then empowering. "Mom is still mad at you," she added toward the end, "but I showed her your Instagram. She was surprised you actually look happy." I smiled at that. Of course, Mom would expect me to be miserable without a conventional home and office. The idea that I could thrive outside the traditional structures she valued so highly would challenge her entire worldview. 2 months later, I was working from a small apartment in Barcelona when my phone rang with an international number I did not recognize. It was Rachel. "Nathan, it is me. I am in Barcelona for a design conference. Jessica mentioned you were here too. I thought maybe we could get coffee, catch up." We met at a small cafe near Park Güell the next day. The initial awkwardness quickly gave way to genuine conversation. Rachel looked good, more confident somehow. She had been promoted at her design firm and was leading a team now. "I have to admit," she said, stirring her cappuccino, "when you sold your house and took off, I thought you were having some kind of breakdown. But looking at you now, I can see it was the opposite. You seem centered." "I am," I acknowledged. Turns out I was putting too much importance on the wrong things. A specific desk, a particular setup, a house that represented success. None of that actually mattered. "Would you ever go back?" she asked. "To a permanent home, I mean." I considered the question carefully. Maybe someday, but not because I think I need it for work or status, only if it adds something meaningful to my life. We parted as friends with a warmth that surprised me. The romantic relationship was over, but something else had taken its place, a mutual respect born of seeing each other clearly for perhaps the first time. 6 months into my nomadic journey, I found myself in Tokyo working from a minimalist apartment with a view of the city's skyline. An email notification popped up on my screen, a message from Mom. "I saw the photos Jessica shared of your Tokyo workspace," she wrote. "It looks professional. Your father called last week. He mentioned seeing your website and being impressed with your client list. I thought you should know." Coming from Mom, this was the equivalent of a glowing endorsement. No apology for her dismissal of my career, but a grudging acknowledgement that perhaps I had found a valid path after all. By the 1-year mark of selling my house, I had worked from 12 different countries. My client roster had doubled. My income had increased by 60%, and I had started a blog documenting the realities of digital nomad life that was gaining significant traction. More importantly, I had gained a clarity about what truly mattered in both my personal and professional lives. The house that once seemed so essential now appeared in my memories as just one chapter in a much larger story. During a co-working session in Berlin, I met Elena, another software developer with a similar nomadic lifestyle. Our professional collaboration quickly evolved into something more personal. Unlike with Rachel, there was no fundamental disconnect about lifestyle or priorities. Elena understood inherently the balance I sought between work and exploration, roots and wings. "Home is where the laptop opens," she joked on our third date, echoing a sentiment I had come to embrace fully. 18 months after leaving my house keys with the new owners, I received another email from Jessica. She had been promoted to marketing manager and had moved to a larger apartment. More surprisingly, she had started her own side business, creating content for small businesses. "Remember how you used to talk about the freedom of working for yourself," she wrote. "I get it now. There is nothing like building something that is truly yours." The last paragraph of her email struck me deeply. "I never thanked you properly for what you did. At the time, I thought you were being cruel, forcing me out like that. Now I realize it was the push I needed. If you had let me stay, I would probably still be making TikToks in your office and going nowhere." That night, as I watched the sunset from a rooftop in Prague, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. The painful confrontations, the difficult decisions, the leap into uncertainty, all leading to a life more authentic and fulfilling than I could have imagined. I had lost a house, but gained a world. I had released the illusion of needing perfect conditions to succeed, and discovered my ability to adapt and thrive anywhere. I had walked away from toxic situations rather than compromising my worth or values. Most profoundly, I had learned that sometimes the things we cling to most desperately, the ones we believe define our success and security, are precisely the things holding us back from reaching our true potential. My mother had been right in one respect, though not in the way she intended. Real careers do not need dedicated workspaces. Real success comes from adaptability, resilience, and the courage to redefine what matters on your own terms. The house I had once cherished now existed only in photographs and memories, yet I had never felt more at home, in the world, or in myself. What spaces in your life are you holding on to that might actually be holding you back? Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that others did not understand, but turned out to be exactly what you needed? Drop your thoughts in the Lokert and in the SIGs. Comments below. and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let go of what you thought you needed to make room for what you truly deserve.